All right. Hello, everybody. It's a show I've been pumped about for a long time. We have so many books, Kostya couldn't even fit on the screen. That's where we are. No, just kidding. He's a little sick today. Also, he's moving. He's moving. But he did submit like a very detailed list of, books, also with his rationalizations. So let me just explain what we're going to do. I'm joined here with International Master David Proust, of course. And what we're going to do is we're talking about the classics. And that means books before 2001. Is it a little bit arbitrary? Yes, but they had to draw a line somewhere. And the idea is, I guess, twofold. One, the books then were really pre-computer, one thing. Just a different style of book altogether. And also, these books have had time to circulate around and people have had time to think about them and rethink about them, digest them. Whereas with the just flood of chess literatures out there now, the sifting process hasn't really happened in the same way. So what I'm going to do, let me just introduce this, is we're going to go left to right. We're going to do each book. And if it gets a 1 up there next to one of our names, it'll get 10 points. And then let me show you in this other scene, when we finish this show, David is going to be doing math behind the scenes. And so we'll get a point score for all of our different books, and we'll figure out what the dojo says in terms of like a normalized score. All right, David, are you pumped? You ready?
I'm ready. I'm looking forward to this. Honestly, Jesse, I wish I could sit down and spend another 20 hours with pretty much every book on this list. I wish I could just reread every single one of these.
Okay. One caveat I wanted to mention, I forgot at the beginning, is several of these books. For example, let's say you got Zurich 1953. Bronstein also wrote The Sorcerer's Apprentice. A lot of people really love that book. Great book. But we're not doing more than one book per author. You could say, for example, the most popular book maybe ever was Bobby Fischer Teaches Chess. However, we're going with 60 Memorable Games. Same goes for other books in here too, like Tal's Life and Games. Some people really wanted that above Tal-Botvinnik 1960. We made the call to go 1960.
Yeah. And basically when we each did our rankings, everybody, like if, for example, we had one book tied with another, right? Like if we had My 60 Memorable Games tied with Tal-Botvinnik 1960, I'm just making that up. But if it were tied, we could then, as a tiebreaker, go to their second book, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, when I made my rankings, for example, like when I looked at the first book, I would rank it, but there were one or two that were maybe tied for me in the second book by the same author, kind of pushed them past the second book by the other author. And then I used that as my tiebreak. So,
okay, good.
Even though we did like Tal 1960, for me, he gets kind of like a tiebreak point for my life in games. Because that was awesome.
Yeah. All right, cool. So what I'll do, I'm going to make this first book a little bit bigger. You can check it out. This is Reassess Your Chess. A lot of people love this book, especially at the club level. I'm going to say I never got into it. Maybe that's because I'm a chess elitist or something like that. But it didn't do anything for me, though I have a lot of respect. So it didn't make my list. But I have a lot of respect for the fact that it's just been so influential with so many players. David, you got any thoughts on this book?
I've never read it. I like Jeremy Silman. I think he's a great writer and a great teacher. I enjoyed working with him as a columnist at chess.com for many years when I was the content manager. But by the time I heard about this book, I was already, beyond the audience that it's written for. So I never had any reason to read it. So I couldn't rank it.
Okay, so here's our first. Actually, I didn't realize we're going to start off in a moment of let's call it controversy. So Kostya, I'm just going to go ahead and say this is by far like Silman's most popular book. But Kostya gave Chess Fundamentals, which is also by Silman, as his number 10 pick. Okay, so I think what we have to do is we have to put this book as number 10 for Kostya. Sound fair?
Isn't isn't Chess Fundamentals by Capablanca?
Oh wait, let me make sure I got this all.
Kostya put How to Reassess Your Chess at number 7. But if neither,
Oh no no no, you're right. Excuse me. Yeah,
but for a book to make our top list, it has to be ranked by at least 2 people. That was our rule. We had to be able to at least average 2 people's scores. We can't rank a book that we haven't actually read.
oh no 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 no, hold on, no no. We got to put this for his number 7 for Kostya's number 7.
For Kostya's number
Yeah
7,
yeah yeah yeah
absolutely.
yeah yeah. So here
Yeah.
we go. Let me. So this is nailed. This is the only Kostya was the only guy who gave this book any love here. Good. And like we kind of did not. Kostya sent us these notes, and both of us, me and David, haven't looked at it too closely because we didn't want to be influenced when we were making our own lists
Right.
about this thing.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it now.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that Chess Fundamentals is the Capablanca
Yes,
book, although
yes, yeah,
Stillman could have also written a book with that name. But I don't think he would, because you wouldn't copy
Right.
word for word a name of a classic when you're somebody who knows chess books that well.
And I'll just read Kostya's note here. Awesome book, enjoyed it and have recommended it to students, but by no means the best book for everyone ever, as excited fans often hype it up to be. And let me just say, to me, the thing that turned me off of it, but I think a lot of people, I can imagine it really being helpful, is he's got like a zillion categories. Instead of like doing a more classic thing where you say material, time, and quality of position, he divides quality of position into like a gazillion different things, like pawn structure and king safety, and it just gets gets way too like it's way too loopy for me. But I can imagine how that could be helpful to people. All right. So, next book. Next book.
Oh, what's next?
7 Deadly Chess Sins.
7 Deadly Chess Sins. All right. I don't see that ranked in Kostya's list,
Right.
But you can look down his list to see if he has a ranking for it while I give my evaluation of
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this book. I think Rowson's a strong writer. I know you've got strong opinions about writing and sentences and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
So
yeah.
so you'll chime in either that I'm a a bore who's not who has no idea about writing, or you'll agree with me. But I think he's a great writer. I think it's well written. I think it's interesting. I think it's practical. I think it's helpful. And I ranked it number 8
Okay.
on my list.
Cool.
Number 8, which is a very strong ranking with the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
with the competition here.
Absolutely.
I would say that it did not. I would say that a lot of the books that I ranked higher than this, it might be very like emotional and personal. They're like books that somehow just grabbed me by my soul and just shook me, or wrung me and just like changed who I was. And this book did not quite do that. I found it very helpful and interesting, but it didn't it wasn't like I'm a new person now that I've read it.
Uh-huh. Okay. I'm hoping my Control-C, Control-V powers are going to work here. No, they're not.
All right.
They're not going to work. Wait a second, Cry. How do I get my Control-C, Control-V? Do you have a special trick, David, when I do this?
As soon as you said your Control-C skills, I got pretty worried here.
Well, anyways, I'll talk a little bit while I figure it out. I was trying to, because I thought this was going to be easier than...
Oh, you need multiple copies of the book to paste into your...
I guess so.
Huh. Maybe you can duplicate it.
Let's see if I
don't know
can.
what program you're working with.
Duplicate. There we go. I got it.
That did it?
Yeah, I did it, buddy. You're a genius. Okay, so I put it at 5. Pretty high ranking. I did not like his second book, The Chess for Zebras, that much. I really felt this book was a lot more time went into it and a lot of conceptual work. And one of the things, about this list is, for me, it's a big deal, obviously, if I had some kind of personal connection to it, but if I really feel like you've explained stuff well. Right? If you've explained stuff well, I'm going to be really into it. And I really thought he did a great job about... This is, for example, where the whole thing of how to talk to your pieces comes from. and it's a
Hmm.
very other people had talked about it like kind of in a similar way, but he was the one that popularized it and gave, I thought, some great examples. So I gave that as number 5. And Kostya, as far as I could tell, he didn't even mention that book. He didn't even mention this book. So yeah. Okay. Well, let's go on. Logical chess. You have any thoughts on this one, David?
Um, I was unimpressed. I read
Mm-hmm.
it long ago. I ranked it outside of my top 10.
Yeah, me too. A lot of people love this book. A lot of people love this book, yeah. Kostya gave it as like number 13 or something like that. He went past 10. I just stopped at 10.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. And what I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to leave these pictures up here because the pictures get small over there. Now that David's given me this amazing duplicate thing, we'll leave it there. So, a very famous book. Uh, yeah. That's a good book. It's a good book. Now, this next book, Chess Fundamentals, is definitely something that Kostya wanted on here. I thought it was an interesting book, but I was kind of surprised that he had it on there. I don't know. Do you have it on your list?
I didn't realize that we were going to rank it, so I didn't rank it, but I've read it and I
Mm-hmm.
can throw it into my rankings real quick here. It would not make my top 10 actually.
Okay, well,
So,
that's fine.
mhm.
Yeah. Anyways, this is Kostya's number 10. And
Yeah.
David, why don't you read to us what he said about this book?
He said much easier to digest than my system, a solid choice for beginners. Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's easier to digest than my system. It's written for beginners, which I don't believe my system is, though I guess we can talk about that more when we actually get to my system. But to me, it's logical that it's easier to digest than my system since I think it is written more for beginners. It is written from a perspective of like, this is the first thing you read about chess, potentially. Um, so and I thought I mean I thought it was fine. I've got nothing against it. I just wasn't blown away. I read it, I at a time when I had time to read everything.
Uh huh.
And yeah, I mean, I read through the whole thing. There was never a point like, oh, I don't want to read this or anything like that.
Yeah.
It was certainly interesting to me.
Well, David, I'm getting the tech grandpa here is having trouble doing his thing. Tech grandpa's like, that duplicate thing that you gave me before was so great, man. But now it's not. Oh, here we go. I got it. Nice. Okay, so that's number 10 for Kostya over here. Yeah, it gets too small in there, so I like to leave it over. All right, now, and David's doing some math, and I'm trying to take a look at the chat while we're doing this. David also helping out. And
Hmm.
next, a big one. Next, a big one. Zurich 1953. What are your
Okay.
thoughts on this book, David?
Zurich 1953, great book. Uh, I've got it. I'm guessing you guys have it even higher than me,
Uh
honestly, would
huh.
be my guess. I mean, I'm so used to everybody saying it was the best chess book ever written.
Uh huh.
I just hear that nonstop when people talk about it. Anytime anybody talks about some other book being like really good, then they also like will be like, but not as good as Zurich 1953 or whatever, or almost as good as Zurich 1953 or whatever. Anyway, I put it fourth,
Uh huh.
which may shock you. Maybe it should have been second or third or something.
Uh
But
huh.
I put it fourth. I also took into account The Sorcerer's Apprentice, which I also loved. For me, fourth is really high. I loved this book. I love The Sorcerer's Apprentice equally. Pretty much. Well, close to equally. I guess Zurich 1953 was a little bit more revolutionary for me since I read it before the other, for sure. Um, but I love them both. I love Bronstein. Um, I think I would hate to be a chess player who didn't have a little piece of Bronstein in me. And I learned a lot from it. I was excited, tantalized, interested. I would read it again and again and again. So,
Okay, cool. Yeah, I read it as a kid. Definitely had a real, let's say, emotional relationship with it, and I wonder if it really stands the test of time. I mean, a lot of the games are just there's not a lot to it actually. There's a lot of games that are just left, and so yeah, I feel like okay. Well, just first I want to say what it did for me is there are a lot of games where Bronstein would say something like, "And in this position, the standard plan is X," right? And I was like, "Oh, okay." I kind of get that, and I can apply it as a template for other positions going forward. And that
Hmm.
was what it was really useful to me. When I read it again years and years later, it didn't have the same effect on me. I still
Hmm.
put it pretty high. I still put it pretty high. And again, I want to say something I said before, which is that a lot of people really wanted us to do the Sorcerer's Apprentice, and we're just doing this one mainly because it's more famous, right? It's
Hmm.
just more, people talk about it more. Oh yeah, it's interesting. A totally different kind of book than you would get today too. So it's interesting in that regard as well.
Hmm.
Okay, let's
But
move
where
on.
did it come down for you?
Oh, I put it there six,
Oh, sorry,
number
I
six.
can't see what you're doing. You put it at six.
Yeah, but
Oh,
it's
okay. So
six. Yeah.
I'm not in trouble for not giving it the number one ranking that everyone always assumes.
Oh, but I'll tell you what is interesting is where do you think Kostya put it? Kostya, dude,
Well,
one.
number one. Number
Number
one.
one, man.
Yeah.
Number one, Kostya. Have you out of your mind? You out of your mind, Kostya? Let's read what he says. I was surprised. I was surprised when Kostya did that. Best tournament book ever. Must read for chess enthusiasts and improvers. So good, I forgot to recommend it when we were talking about our list. If you truly like chess, you will enjoy this book.
How could something be so good that you forget it?
Well, we were just throwing out. We were brainstorming. We were brainstorming different,
Okay.
different things. And I had mentioned it in our first thing. It's definitely, on the list of classics. Not only for myself, but right. That's when you talk to people, that's a real book. And what's funny? One of the things I remember that book is that was, later I got really involved in Smyslov, trying to understand where the guy's coming from, going over a lot of his games. And that was my first introduction to him. And what's interesting about the book is Bronstein doesn't really skip Smyslov, even though Smyslov just crushed that tournament. He like dominated that tournament in such a smooth style. And he kind of skips over a lot of the Smyslov games.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's a totally when I think back on those games too, such a different style of chess back then. You know, such a different style. So
Yeah.
many G3 Kings Indians, for example, again and again.
Right.
I feel like that was the most popular opening of that event.
Foos posits that Kostya may have just put it first because Bronstein gave so much attention to the King's Indian defense.
That's true, and that's of course before the Mar del Plata variation.
And that's the case also in the Sorcerer's Apprentice, So
Okay, okay, that's interesting.
I mean, the guy was a huge King's Indian player. And if you look at Kostya's play,
Uh huh.
um, maybe he personally gained a little bit more from that than some other people. So I mean, my number one is going to reflect my chess style. I think you'll
Uh huh.
see, and we'll see if your number one reflects your chess style. I'm curious to see.
Okay, that'll be interesting. Yeah. Okay, we got Road to Chess Improvement. This one's kind of an interesting book. I think a lot of people really mention it. Dear friend Yermo's a good friend of mine, and this book, I don't know. I think a lot of people wouldn't necessarily consider it a classic. To me, like Yermo, it's a book about grit. It's a book about maybe not being the most talented chess player ever, but really putting your nose to the grindstone and trying really hard to improve, and then improve on a method that I espouse as well, which is really going over your own games and religiously. And that's what that book is all about. So definitely has a place in my heart, really for that method more than anything else. And I put it at number 10, I believe. Yeah, I put it at number 10.
Close to me.
Uh-huh.
I put it at number 9. I thought it's really good. I also don't think of it necessarily as being an obvious classic because I don't hear people talking about it that much. We think it's a great book, but there's some older titles that we don't have in our list that other people might think of more, Larson, Gligerich, Reti, I mean, Tarash. I don't know. A few decades back, I think their work was more famous, maybe.
Absolutely.
But quality wise, I think the Yermo book definitely belongs in this discussion. So I put it at number 9. I think it's very inspiring. I think he works really hard in his games, and he worked really hard on his book. And when you read the book, it definitely teaches you to work hard. I think that's very clear. So, I mean, I would highly recommend it. Again, to more sort of like advanced players, people who've already learned all the basics and got some tournament experience under their belt and are willing to really look at themselves in the mirror and make some changes.
Yeah, Kostya's moving house today, but also I just didn't have enough room in this template. There's all these books, no room for Kostya, man. No, he's room, but he is also feeling a little bit under the weather. All right, now, very famous one coming up.
Wait. What's Kostya's take on the road to chess improvement?
He doesn't have it.
Okay, I'll read it then. Kostya ranks it as number 6.
Oh, wait, did I miss it?
Fantastic work, so enjoyable to read and practical at the same time.
I apologize. I didn't see it. I didn't see Kostya had it. Okay, so Road made it. Man. Okay. Let's see here.
Road's in there right now. It's on all 3 of our lists.
Oh God, what did I just do?
We'll see if its point total holds up and keeps it in the top 10 of our final dojo average.
All right, Jesse. All right, Jesse, figure it out, buddy. There we go. All right, number 6 for Kostya. Nice. Yeah, thank you for keeping me honest. Kostya just sent us these things. We didn't look too closely at it. Okay, number 6, beautiful. Well, that's one of only the second book to be in everybody's business. Okay, here we go. Bobby Fischer, buddy. Let's make that big. By the way, just to reiterate, probably the most selling book of all time is the book that Kostya loves to hate, which is Bobby Fischer Teaches Chess. I don't hate that book. I think it's fine if you're just starting out how to play. It's got a kind of cool gimmick where you turn the page and goes backwards and does weird stuff. But for our purposes, right, here at the dojo, definitely this is going to be the book we're going to talk about. All right, David, where'd you put this guy?
Also, I think that other one wasn't actually written by Fischer, right? It's just...
That's probably true.
It was written by someone else. He sold his name to it. Then they've made insane money off of that book. But it is a piece of trash. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it to anybody to read when there's all kinds of other chess books that they could be reading.
Yeah.
Road to Improvement was by Yermolinsky, Knights Tour, by Alex Yermolinsky. So my 60 memorable games. You want me to lead off?
Yeah, go ahead, buddy.
I put it at number 6.
Number 6. Okay.
Number 6 gets
This is interesting.
It's a pretty good book. Good annotations by a pretty good player. No, I mean he was a great player. The annotations are good. I learned a lot reading that book. A ton. Really learned a lot.
Interesting. Okay.
But I think I probably also missed a lot. I think that probably when I read that book, there was a lot of stuff I just didn't understand. Stuff I still wouldn't understand now, but at least now I would notice what I wasn't understanding and work on it maybe. I've been playing through some Fischer games in the last couple months, from Kasparov's book. So I've been restudying some Fischer games and really seeing just how much of Fischer's chess I don't understand, even though I played through basically every game he ever played as a kid, but I mean, a lot of the games I don't remember, which is one sign that I didn't understand them. Stuff that I understand, I remember a lot better than stuff I don't understand. So, I mean, I think there was like an element of some of it I just didn't get when I looked at it. Though I think that, I do think it is approachable for a weaker player. They just won't get everything probably, right? But I think it's fine for a weaker player like I was to read it. Maybe I should read it again.
Yeah, very difficult book, honestly. I remember as a kid finding it difficult. Um, I put it number two, buddy. I put it number two.
Okay.
And I guess what I should say about it is when I first read it, I think it was too difficult for me. And it
Hmm.
is what I find really admirable about it is that it's personal, like a lot of the other books I'm going to talk about, like it's a personal relationship to the game. And what's clever about the annotations is he does not talk about every move in depth. But he's like, okay, we're going to talk about just a couple points in depth, and then we might do it really in depth, right? And so, for example, in our book club, we're doing the Skelfan book, which is
Yeah.
fine. But it's like, okay, every move, we're going to talk about this thing really in depth. And two, I'm lost. I'm lost in Gelfan's like computer analysis, and this is like a very human take on the position. I'm sure you go back and you're going to find computer problems with it if you wanted to do that to yourself. But yeah, so I put it number two. I think I could imagine switching it around in my top four. I think my top four is a little bit malleable, but
Okay.
definitely way up there. Where did
Yeah.
Kostya put it?
Kostya put it number two. An incredible game collection by one of the absolute greatest. Tons and tons of value if you're willing to work through the variations.
There you go. Oh, look. You're the odd man out, buddy. You're the odd man out.
Well, I didn't put it that low,
Okay,
but yes, you
okay.
guys are more of a consensus there.
Yeah, that was pure consensus. Look at that. Bobby Fischer
Yeah.
teaches chess.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that
Uh,
edges ahead of Zurich 1953 already.
yeah.
That's our number one on points so far as an average, by the way.
This is fun. I like this.
By 1 point, by one weighted point.
All right, buddy. Think like a grandmaster.
Mm.
This, I honestly, I put this up there because other people wanted me to, but it wasn't on my list.
Not on mine either. But it's famous as can be. I mean, that name,
Uh huh.
you think like chess book. I think you hear that name. So
Yeah, yeah. I'd say this one thing about it that's interesting now in hindsight is that he was the guy who came up with this thing about trees and then stopping yourself. Like you do an analysis, then you chop it off, and you're like, I have the confidence to say I did that correctly, and I'm never going back to it again.
right,
And it's terrible advice. But I want to say that back in the day, no one was recognizing it as terrible advice, right?
right.
So it was like at the time, it seemed interesting and cool and like kind of like hard, like, oh, I have the discipline to stop myself because I have the courage of my convictions or something dumb like that.
Hmm.
And it's only now in hindsight that it's like, no, a lot of times you go down some hole with a variation and you'll find an idea that you can apply to a different variation. The one
Hmm.
you just looked at, some idea you didn't even see, right? So it's like, no, of course you're going to go back. There's all kinds of times you want to go back. So, anyways, that was not.
Yeah.
It's not on Kostya's list, is it?
I mean, my vague poll of GMs I've talked to in my life is that I believe everyone I've ever talked to said that's not actually how GMs think, despite
Right,
like the title of the book.
right.
Like,
Kostya.
well, at least they're only reporting on themselves, right? But I think every GM I've talked to said I do not think like a grandmaster.
Right.
So,
Kostya had it as
Kostya
11. He had it as
has it
11.
close,
Yeah,
almost on the list,
yeah, almost on the list. Yeah, yeah.
but no points.
All right, here we go. Famous book, Art of Attack in Chess. A lot of people really love this book. Really love this thing. Did this make your list, David?
Almost number 11.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. It go ahead. Well, okay. I'm going to throw the ball back to you. It never really spoke to me. I think kind of like Think Like a Grandmaster. It's a great title. It's a great cover, and people like the idea and the kind of flair of like like an aggressive style, I guess, is what they loved about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I liked it.
Uh-huh.
I think it's a fun book.
Yeah.
I like me some good attacks. Sure. There was a similar book I think called Art of the Middle Game, which
Uh-huh.
has
Yeah.
4 different contributors, um, of whom I think Cariz was one of them.
Uh-huh.
And I liked that book better. Um, but it wasn't on our list of books to rate. But yeah,
Kostya,
I
dude.
don't know. This book's fine.
Check it out. Kostya puts it at 4. 4. Pound for pound, likely the most instructive book in the list. So many classic games and ideas condensed into one package.
I
Holy
guess, Jesse,
moly.
you should just be glad that at least the millennial has read a book, right? I mean,
Well, our
don't
millennial,
expect him to know how to rate it.
hold on. Our millennial, I want to
Yeah.
say he's very well read for a millennial. No, really, the millennials don't.
I know that.
They don't read, dude. So it's kind of amazing that he read. And I think, by the way, I want to tease this. We are going to do a modern list at some point in the near future.
Right.
And I want to say for modern books, Kostya is the most well read by far.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
he'll
of
have read
us.
way more than
Yeah,
us.
he's read more of like he's on like books are coming out and he's like I'm getting them right away and I'm reading them, which is not how I do my chess study. But
Right.
yeah, so it's good to
I
have
mean,
it.
Kostya had the idea for the book club, right?
Oh yeah,
So
yeah. Okay, Art of Attack. I guess only one. Kind of cool that's on the list though. Now we're gonna go Botvinnik 100 games. Botvinnik has other books as well. Did this make your list, David?
oh yeah. Let me see exactly where. Yeah, number 5.
Okay. Cool. Let's see, make this somehow readable for you. Yeah, good. Yeah, why do you like this book, David?
Fantastic analysis. Introduced me to a whole variety of strategic ideas that I didn't know when I read it. And I'd already read, a fair number of strategic treatises or, game or tournament collections that, featured annotations of interesting strategic games. And yet it was like, I think when I read Botvinnik, I'd mostly read stuff from before him, honestly, right? So I'd read books by Reti, Capablanca, Algechin, Lasker, that kind of group. And there was just another level with Botvinnik, right? I mean, there were just, Queen's Gambits and Nimzo Indians and, minor piece things and structure things that were just, and I'd read Nimzovich before him, obviously, as well, right? There's just all this stuff that just wasn't there. And it was really also, I want to say it wasn't like too dogmatic. It was a little bit more like precise. It was like, in this position, this bishop is ruling. Here are some reasons why it's ruling. Here's how you can play with it or against it. I'm not saying that a bishop always rules or that if you do this or that, a bishop's always better, right? It was like check out this position. In this position, this bishop's top dog. And then in the next game, you'd see something else and you would say, in this position, this pawn majority can't be used very well in the endgame. Right? So actually, I think it was like quite flexible. I mean, people often think of strategic stuff as being stuff where you can like think one sentence and then like know like the answer in a position. Like you can look at the position and be like, the knight is too strong. I must make this 3-move maneuver to trade it.
Yeah.
Or something like that. And then like everything you're supposed to play in the game. For me, I've almost never had an experience of playing a game like that, Jesse. Like very, very few games where like I just go from like signpost to signpost, and a single sentence can explain the strategy. And to me, Botvinnik didn't do that. It was really like very like concrete and specific, yet strategic.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I'll just add to that. Okay, well, actually, I should say where I'm putting it. I will add that it is the first book I feel that takes the idea of self-analysis very seriously. And I would say there's three books in this grouping that do that. This, Test of Time, and then Yermo's book.
Mm-hmm.
And then also really cool, we're going to talk about Test of Time a little bit. Actually, I'll talk about it when we talk about Test of Time. There's a relationship between the two books. But, right, this is the first time that that's really been done. And, yeah, I love this book. And there's other books you could mention of Botvinnik doing this similar thing, but this is, I think, the classic. And, something I'm really trying to get that's very hard is he did all these notebooks of all of his world championship matches where he went deep. And they're kind of like not out there. It's very hard to get. Very hard to get. So anyways, this is a fantastic book, and I'm putting it at number 7. Number 7, yeah. Where did Kostya put this somewhere?
Yeah, he did. But number 7 seems like a little bit low for you because if I'm not mistaken, I mean, this is kind of your main school of chess for you, right? Like when we did the 6 schools of chess, the Botvinnik to Kasparov to Yermo, I think Timon's also in that school. Like that's very much your school, right?
Right. Oh, by the way, a book that did not make the list that I really enjoyed was Timon's Art of Analysis. And the reason is most people haven't read it. It's just not that well known. A lot of these books, just didn't make it out there. I want to add, while I'm on that topic, there's a book that a lot of people wanted me to put on here called The Best Move by Jansa and Hort. I can't even get that book. I've tried for decades to get that book. I cannot find that book. Maybe a millennial will steal it for me, and I'll be like, okay, I'll steal a book this one time just because I can't get this book. Because I can't get this book. And I think, David, the answer to your question is more like a personal relationship to the book where I mean, a great book, but it didn't speak to me in the same way, say, Bobby Fischer's book did, So that's where I'm coming down on it. But definitely, I mean, 7 is a big deal for me. You get 7.
No,
that's
I mean,
a big deal.
7's great. I just had this feeling like if it was based on like, what are our touchstones, what's our school of thought and so forth, I feel like that book like matches you really well. So.
Okay, fair enough. No, that's true. That's true.
Okay, so it's interesting. Okay, I mean, 7's a fine ranking.
Yeah.
Kostya gave it number 5, just like me.
Okay.
And he simply said it's very instructive, and Botvinnik was the man.
Okay.
I wish we knew who Kostya thought was currently the man, but at that time, Botvinnik was the man.
Botvinnik was the man. There's no question about it. He's definitely the man. Okay, good. So now Tal-Botvinnik. Great book. Wow, great book. And again, let me just mention, a lot of people wanted My Life in Games. And I think you were one of those people, actually, David, right? You wanted My Life in Games?
I read My Life in Games first, and honestly, I like it even better, though I've got nothing bad to say about this one. So,
Yeah. This is a great book. The more years that pass, one of the things about classics actually is like books in the last 20 years, just not enough time has passed. But Tal-Botvinnik, I just keep coming back to it. And there's several games that I know by heart. I've got cognitive decline, so I don't remember games that well. But a lot of those games, I'm like, right, I can talk about it. I can talk about the ideas, and it is very high on my list. I've got it at number 4. And you can ask me, David, like, well, why this one and not, say, the Botvinnik? And a couple things I want to stress with this one is I feel like it is giving me and the chess world a new way of thinking and playing chess. And it's also the best book, I think, in describing a personal relationship to the moves played. Like the emotional relationship that a player has to the moves. Really well written too. A lot of funny lines, really funny lines. That a lot of times it's not just funny, but there's humor in the instruction. So one of the top books, and like I said, the top 4 I feel are kind of malleable. If you get me on a different day, I might order them a little bit differently.
So that got number 4 for you.
Uh-huh.
All right. That is the lowest rating any of us gave it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Tal got number 2 on my list, Jesse.
Oh, great, man. All right.
So this is really big for me, and this is partly because I ranked my life and games in there too
Right.
for me. Um, I mean it's just incredible. It's absolutely incredible. Both of those books, they just blow my mind, and to me they communicate like a love of chess, an approach to chess, a way of thinking. I mean, it's like every level of your relationship to chess, right? Like your emotional level, your technical level, like it was just amazing, and it makes me want to play chess. Yeah. I mean, I'm speechless just thinking about when I read it. So
Okay, cool. Yeah. Where and Kostya, you said he had. Oh, I don't know. I haven't
Kostya
looked.
put it number 3. He wrote best match book ever question mark.
Uh huh.
Yes, I think. And he says that Jesse's going to mention clock times. He was wrong about that.
Oh no, I will mention clock times. No, I think, honestly, the clock times. I feel like that should be in every book, every single book. It's so ridiculous. We're reading this Gelfand thing, and there's so many critical decisions he's talking about. He's not telling us what the clock situation is, and there's so many books after this one too, where you're like, people aren't giving the clock times, even for world championship matches. And I'm like, are you
Right.
insane? Are you insane? Why are you telling me the clock time? Is this like a thing of hubris on your part? What's going on? So that,
So if they didn't put the clock times, don't expect to get ranked by Jesse.
no, I understand. I understand. It's like a chess culture thing that people, it took, it was obviously hard for these people to have the idea of putting the clock times in there. So, anyways, yeah, I think
Right.
it adds a lot to the book. Yeah.
So by the way, that book with a 3rd place ranking from Kostya, it just squeaks ahead of my 60 memorable games. It's currently our highest rated book.
Oh man,
Yeah.
that's surprising to me.
This might be the champion. I don't know if anyone else is going to beat this.
People in the chat are mad at you about Bobby Fischer, man. They're like, "How come it isn't higher, David? What's going on?"
I don't see anybody. I don't see anybody in chat complaining about Bobby Fischer. They seem to be engaged in a discussion of what is a boomer and what is a millennial. I think
yeah.
we'll leave them to that.
Yeah, we'll leave him to that. Okay, the next book. We also were thinking about New York. I think it's 1924 or 7. I can't even remember. Also by Alekhine. So those kind of came up as definite picks. I guess I'll lead this one off. Let's just say Kasparov did this thing I think makes a lot of sense, to say that he's in the style of Alekhine. Alekhine kind of formed a school. And it's a school that is not close to me, but I acknowledge its existence. And when I was a kid, I remember being offended by a lot of the moves. This is pre-computer, so it's not like I could check it. I was just like, this is wrong. This is wrong. How could this possibly be right? And it's only with time that I was able to understand it, and understand it as the foundation of a school. And, I think one of the cool things about being wrong is, and that you can go back and you can kind of reevaluate things. Also a great example of why something that's over 20 years old is going to have time to have fermented, gone through a filtering process in a person's mind. So yeah, I got this at number 8.
Okay. Number 8. All right. So this is Alyekhin's collection of games and New York 1924.
Yeah.
All right. I put it number 3.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was great. I don't know honestly, I don't know if I've ever felt as much suspense as when I read New York 1924, because I didn't know who won the tournament as I was reading the book, That was crazy, man. I mean, I know people want to speed up the game now, but I mean that
Right.
I spent like whatever a month finding out who won the tournament, right? By playing through every game. It was awesome. And I don't know if there's ever been a tournament more exciting than that, but if there has been a tournament more exciting than that, then credit to Alyekhin for making that tournament seem like the most exciting tournament of all time. Yeah. That book's great. On its own, I like that book. I think better than Zurich 1953. So to me, that's the best tournament book that I've ever read. Is New York 1924. His collection of his best games also fantastic. I would have his collection of best games more or less tied with Botvinnik's 100 games. But New York 1924 pushes him up on tie breaks for me.
Okay, cool. And where did Kostya put this thing?
Let's see. Kostya. Botvinnik attack. He didn't put it.
Oh, he didn't put it.
I don't think so. You can check, but
I better check. Yeah.
Maybe he forgot. Or maybe he didn't like it.
Yeah,
he didn't even put
like
it among his snubs. He didn't even put it among famous games he doesn't like.
Well, one thing about our millennial is there are very few books in his list. There's none in his top 10 that are before 1950. So that might be a millennial thing right there.
It's true. I would have thought the list would have some more, stuff from the 20s and 30s,
Right.
Maybe Philodora's work.
Okay.
He may have forgotten it because it's his favorite, says Seth. I almost want to call Kostya and be like, what about Alyekhin, dude? And he'll be like, oh, that's my actual favorite book ever. I just forget it. But for the moment, I guess it's going to get no points from Kostya, and not looking good for Alyekhin.
I will say this, that when I first, I'll just say it again, when I first got it, I didn't have any appreciation for it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I loved it. There's some game in there where he walks his king through f4, e5, f6 to go checkmate the opponent with two rooks, rook on g7, rook on h7, king on f6. Oh man, that's amazing.
Yeah, no. I mean, yeah, totally new, contribution to the game. Right there. Boom. Yeah. Contribution to the game. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Also, he made the Queen's Gambit much more dynamic than it had been before, right? If we want to mention some of his contributions.
Yeah, a lot of dynamic opening play. Really, the quest for the initiative defined in a totally, just a way that people in prior generations just hadn't conceived of. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of
how would you pronounce his name, Jesse, since that's just come up? Alyekhin?
Oh, man, it's really tough. I think it's something like Alyoshin or something like that.
Alyoshin?
Something like that. Don't get me started. I had some Russian friends try to break it down for me, man. And that, it's kind of like when French people try to get you to pronounce their words. They're just doing it to make fun of you. They don't actually want you to pronounce it the right way. And then when you do it exactly the way they told you to do it, they're like, no, that wasn't it, dude. That wasn't it. All right, Endgame Strategy. Did this book make your list?
Which one?
Endgame Strategy by Shereshevsky.
Oh yeah, I love that book. I put it as number 10 for me.
Okay, good. I want to say about this book, I didn't realize, it's kind of interesting to think about Dvoretsky. This is really our only Dvoretsky book on this list, and I didn't know that it was a Dvoretsky book. And I still don't know to what extent Dvoretsky worked on it with Shereshevsky, but I guess that's the rumor on the street. That that's what was going on there with that book. I got a lot out of it. It's kind of also one of the, it's kind of I would call it an accessible, what am I trying to say? Endgame book, right? And actually for the time, what's interesting is so many other books are kind of algorithms, algorithms for how do you do this? How do you do that? Which isn't, meaningless, but it doesn't really help you play the end game that much better, in my opinion. And this was one of the few books that I felt like was trying to do that. So I put
so you do think that this book does help you play better?
I think so.
Potentially.
Yeah. I put it as number 9.
Nice. Right around the same as me. I thought it did help me play the end game better. I mean, my end game may still look terrible, but I mean, I think it was worse before. That said, Dvoretsky, who's not on the list today, with his end game manual is not on the list today or anything like that. But I think his manual also made me better in the end game.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, the Dvoretsky thing. I mean, Kostya has this comment here. Maybe it was Dvoretsky who wrote this one. I don't know where that comes from. That's my first time hearing his name associated with this book.
Well, like I said, that's the word on the street. I didn't know that back in the day when this book came out. Yeah.
So Kostya's points for this, he gives it place number 8. Maybe it was Dvoretsky who wrote this one, but overall an absolute must read for anyone looking to learn how to play endgames like a typical Russian schoolboy. So if you want to play as well as the average 8-year-old, that's in the endgame. That's the book for you.
There we go. Yeah.
All
That's
right.
very common. Look at that, 8, 9, and 10. Kind of consensus there. Interesting.
Yeah. That it's not like, like an earth-shattering book, but it may be one of our highest placed endgame books by the end of this, right? And it
well, I think it's our
we all
only
agree that
endgame
it's
book.
useful.
It's our only endgame book. Well, like people were saying actually on the chat, they were like, well, isn't it interesting that it's game collections that are mostly winning this? We don't have a lot of, like, let's say, philosophical stuff. We've only got My System. We've only got one endgame book. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Yeah. Okay, now several books.
We've got even less opening books.
Yeah, we even less opening books. That's right. Some people on our Twitter did put opening books that kind of surprised me, and I'm sure there's been some good opening books, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
All right, now there's been numerous Kasparov books. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. This is the best Kasparov book of all time. This is pre-computer. I got to hang out with him in St. Louis at a dinner party, and he told this great story about how he wrote it on an East German typewriter, like with the hands. Amazing story. And one of the greatest books of all time, for sure. I'm putting it at number 3. Also a book that I couldn't, it was very hard the first time. Very hard for me. Very hard. Beautiful book. And one thing I was going to mention before, actually, I blew it. I'll just go ahead and duplicate it here. I was going to mention before is kind of in a cool tradition is that Botvinnik's 100 selected games are the games that he played before the World Championship, right? So Test of Time is also the same thing. This is really charting his progress to right before when he plays for the world title. And, oh man, these games, stunning, completely like change your world. Yeah. Stunning. Yeah. And it's so much better without the computer because I'm getting like a clear view of how the guy thinks, Yeah. Wow, what a book. And like I said, I could on a different day, maybe I'm going to put this higher than Bobby, Totally possible. Yeah. Where'd you put it, David?
Yikes. Marta Kadonk is saying it would cost us $800 to get a copy of this book now.
It's very expensive. Vishnu, let me tell you a story. So Vishnu knew that I was into this book, and, he wanted to kind of give me a gift for doing a lot of game analysis for him. He showed up at a tournament here in East Coast land and gave me Test of Time, dude. How about that? He tracked it down and found it. And that's my retirement policy right now, David.
Seriously?
If I ever have a problem, man, in my financial life, I'm going to sell that book. But I'm going to try not to get to that point.
Well, sell it to me if you're looking for a buyer.
All right.
And I need to put a Post-it on my wall to get on Vishnu's good side.
That's right. We got to be on Vishnu's good side.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
Man,
I do not think he paid a gazillion dollars for it, but I'm sure it wasn't free.
Yeah. All right. Well, I ranked it as Seth predicted. I ranked it number 1. Boom.
Wow. Yeah.
Best thing ever for my life. I mean, the best thing that's ever happened to me is that Kasparov wrote this book.
Well, actually, David, I think it's great actually to look at your top 3 because those are the dynamic players right there. Kasparov, Tal, Alyoshin, right there. Boom,
Yeah.
boom, boom, boom. Yeah. Cool. No, that's one of the cool things about this is actually more than anybody, I think that really defines you as a player.
Yeah.
Those 3 books in terms of like a style.
Yeah.
Though you are a pawn grubber, buddy. I thought you were going to put Portnoy's 400 best games.
Yeah, I don't know why I started grabbing pawns. I think at first it was to like provoke my opponents to try to attack me so that, when I was black, I could still get a game like when I'm white, but like on the other side and have them miss when they swing for me.
Right.
I think that was where it started. Anyway, yeah, I mean, I do think like, my list shows quite a strong personal bias. But I mean, it was the best I could do. So I ranked them my way. And, I look forward to there being more than one person here to sort of average it out and make a better dojo list than what I would have come up with on my own.
And one cool thing I like what you're saying about it too is like that book, I mean, it's kind of like a religious experience, honestly. It's like, wow, we're gonna show you some stuff here, son. We're gonna show you a whole new level of what the game is. Yeah, man, revolution. I mean, it's really like it's like actually of all the books here, even more than Bobby's book, that book was like, this is a revolution. That's the way I feel about it when I read that book. I'm like, this is a new way of looking at the game, man. Incredible. Yeah.
So are you confident ranking 60 memorable games above this, or is it really close?
Like I said, I feel my top 4. I can actually, let's say 2 to 4. I'm pretty confident that they could go. If you got me on a different day, I would go in a different way. Okay. 1, I might just keep at 1.
Yeah. Cool. I don't know what happened with Kostya. I'm not seeing it here.
Yeah, so he's really screwing it over too because without his vote, it's not going to be way up there, David. Yeah.
I mean, it was one thing when he torpedoed Alyoshin, but now he's torpedoing Kasparov? The greatest chess author of all time and second greatest chess player of all time?
And I just realized I blew something too. He put the Botvinnik book. I blew this. I'm sorry. I meant to have done this. He put the Botvinnik book at number 9. I'm sorry. So I blew that. So
he did. Oh,
well,
yeah, Botvinnik is number 9.
Yeah.
No. Botvinnik is ranked number 5. It's on the 9th.
It's on there.
His thing, but it's ranking number 5.
Sorry,
so you got it right.
Yeah. I was just looking.
What did Kostya do to me? He just wants me to suffer, Jesse. What's with this?
Kostya says he might do like some kind of reaction vid, so maybe we'll get that. Now, actually, I just realized...
And then he'll be laughing at me crying.
Okay, but I blew this. I blew this here. I made a mistake. I did make a mistake. Really? So, Kostya has winning chess strategies as number 9, and I don't have that on the list.
You didn't give it to us to rank. I would rank it really highly, actually.
Winning chess. Well, I was the one mostly doing winning chess strategies. Well, okay, but the problem with winning chess strategies is he already has Reassess in there, doesn't he? Wait a second.
Yeah, he does.
So that he was confused, dude. He was confused about that.
Okay. Kostya, where are you?
Have you drop us a line, buddy? Tell us who your number 9 is.
I mean, he hurt me, and I still wish he were here. What does that say?
Oh, that means there's only one. Oh, you have a book that's, you still have one left. You have seven and I have one. Well, I have a feeling what it's going to be. All right.
I've
Here
only
we,
got one spot missing at this point.
yeah, you got number seven, right?
Okay. Well, you got almost all my books then.
Well, let's move on, David. Here we go, buddy. My
Okay.
system, man. My
Did he
system.
just gave Gary 0 points?
He gave my system 0 points. How about that?
Okay. Is that what's next?
My system, buddy. Number one.
My system.
Best book of all time, right there.
What?
There you go, buddy.
And Kostya gave you 0 on that one too?
Kostya put it like number 11, or I don't know. It's beyond the top 10.
My system 14. Do you want to go first or Kostya go first? Let's get rid of Kostya and then you can say what you think about this book.
What do you mean, get rid of Kostya?
I'm going to read Kostya's comment and then you can tell
Oh,
us
okay.
something more serious about this book. Nimzo was a genius, but the book is too wordy and there are far better books for beginners. Of course, the games on their own are instructive. It's not for beginners, is it, Jesse?
Well, I think it's for a variety of levels. Yeah, I think it's for a variety of levels. I think it's very hard actually for a millennial to approach this book, and I say that with just grace. I'm not saying it to be mean. Um, I'll say this with this book, even though I've got it listed as the number one, I want to stress to people that if you're just coming to chess now and you see Jesse's list, it doesn't mean you're gonna like my system or get anything out of it, because it's written almost 100 years ago, and I'm not sure that it's accessible. Even like, when I read it more than 30 years ago, and then again, it's got to kind of feel that just will strike you. A lot of the concepts will seem weird. And there are things he gets wrong that, you could say like are different than now. For example, just back then, people didn't appreciate the power of time, the power of tempo. So that, if you go back and look at it, it's going to feel he's going to say some things that seem kind of funny or dumb to you. And you can laugh at it and sneer if you want, but it's 100 years old.
Right.
The reason I'll say this is the best chess book is it is the one book which has managed to to really bring philosophy to bear on chess and give you a structured way of thinking about it. It's the one book I continually come back to when I'm analyzing my own games. Little things about what Nimzovich said will come into my mind just via the unconscious. And the writing was both funny and deep at the same time. And so a problem with a lot of these books is they're written a little bit off the cuff. Someone hasn't taken the time to put words to their ideas. And so you look at, say, 60 Memorable and Kasparov, they're not nearly as well written as Nimzovich. Like, Nimzovich was thinking a lot about how he's going to put these words to the page. And beautiful metaphors, really thought out. So, yeah, number one, man.
Wow. How do you like chess praxis?
I like chess praxis a lot. Yeah, and like we said, that I think you like that best, right? That's what you were saying.
I do. I like it even better. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. I feel that. No,
But I'm just curious. Like, would chess praxis be a really strong book for you too?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
In a way, I think they're paired.
Yeah.
I think they were
I mean,
meant to be paired.
they are written as a pair, right? I mean, one is like,
Absolutely, yeah.
here's like the textbook and theory, and here's like the field work.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I love both books. I mean, you had some like books that you really loved that ended up at 6 or 7 or whatever for you, right? So my 7th place ranking is in no way an insult. And when I saw the thing that Sirawan posted about how my system wasn't good, or when I see Kostya say that the book is too wordy or something, I don't get it, because I think it's just fantastic. I just think they're off base.
Right.
At least he didn't put it in his snubs, right? I guess Kostya just thought there were a bunch of good books. Too wordy is not the same. Sirawan really just like smacked it, right? He said it's not even a good book.
I think it's interesting with Sarawan, actually. I just want to speak to that a second. Sarawan, is an immensely talented player. And I don't. My sense of Sarwan is he mostly did not learn chess through books. He learned it through playing and, getting to go hang out with Korchnoi and stuff like that. And a lot of the concepts there he had problems with, partly even for him when they were, when he's coming up in the late 70s and the 80s, it feels antiquated to him at that point. For example, this incredible concept of overprotection that does feel weird now. Like it takes a little bit. This is what I mean by people like going back and reading it. Like the idea of overprotection, I could talk about at length, and I think is a very interesting idea, but it does not apply easily to modern chess. And that's one of the things that Sarwan loves to hate on, the idea of
I think that overprotection absolutely does apply.
Well, I'm with you, but I'm just saying, that's one of the things that Sarwan really hates on. And, the other thing I want to say about it, and Sarwan can hate me all he wants, but the words that Sarwan uses, whether he knows it or not, are all basically derived from Nimzovich. He's using the word prophylaxis, for example, right? It's not like, and Nimzovich's description of prophylaxis is one of the philosophically deepest things. Yeah, I think, actually, I'll go ahead and say it. I think it's the deepest thing I've ever read about chess. Okay. I maybe I'll change my mind on that, but just off the top of my head, yeah, that's what I'd say about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if like we evaluated chess praxis instead of my system, or if we evaluated them together. I don't think that would really change my rankings, honestly, by much, because the book I have right above it is My 60 Memorable Games, which is pretty strong. It's a close call. I could imagine it moving up one spot there, maybe, if it were chess praxis. But then it comes up against Botvinnik, and I don't know. Yeah, it's tough. It's pretty close on some of these. It's pretty close.
Right.
I like both books. Obviously, very different books to me, and I recommend them to people for sure.
Cool. Well, I guess the next two books did not make it to the list, but they were mentioned very much on our Twitter feed. And let me just talk briefly about this book, which was very hard to get when I was a kid. Basically, you could not get this book when I was a kid, Questions of Modern Chess Theory. And Fischer found this book very influential. This book is a Russian tome, basically trying to go to, let's say, move on from Nimzovich, or like, what can we say that Nimzovich didn't? I didn't get into it that much, but I think it should be on the list just because it was so influential to guys like Fischer. I'm going to guess that Fischer read it in the original Russian. That's my guess. But he carried that thing all around. And I want to give a shout out. I did this review of John Donaldson's book, and John Donaldson talks a little bit about Lipnitsky and Fischer, and I hadn't known about that much. So that's kind of a thing that's coming to light historically. That was a big book for Fischer as well.
Yeah.
Did you read Simple Chess, David?
Simple Chess, unread.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't get that into it. But it's not.
And I don't see it here in Kostya's.
No, it's not there.
List either.
It's definitely a book a lot of people mentioned. A lot of people mentioned in our Twitter feed, so I wanted to put it on there. Okay, have you done the math, David?
He snubs Shirov's Fire on Board. Kostya wanted us to diss Shirov and Kramnik, My Life in Games. Is My Life in Games from before 2000? Kramnik wasn't world champion before 2000.
No, I think it's around there. It's now 99, 2000, yeah. He's really snubbing Fire on Board? What's going on?
Yeah, I don't know. He's not, he didn't explain. He just said these are his favorite books to put down. Kramnik's My Life in Games and Shirov's Fire on Board.
But I think he's saying the favorite snubs, so the people who didn't make the top 15. So like the honorable mentions. That's what he means. Yeah, that's what he means.
No. Oh, really? He doesn't mean books that are overrated?
No. The ones he hates is the Fischer, Bobby Fischer Teaches Chess.
And he just put that there in order to say that's really bad.
Yeah.
Okay, hopefully that's what it means. Jesse, we're going to adjust the math slightly because Kosti had two books that we're putting as Silman. I mean, I think he was thinking Winning Chess Strategy Sirawan because Sirawan wrote it with Silman, so he's thinking of it separately. But if we want to adjust it and we don't have that book to put in there,
let's put it in there, dude. I can grab that. I can put it in there. Yeah. Winning Chess Strategy. So that's the thing. That's funny because it came up as a Silman book, but right. A lot of people are talking about it as a Sarah. Are you sure that it's
they
weird?
wrote it together?
They wrote it
both
together.
Authors
right?
on it. I read it as a kid.
Right. Okay.
So I'm gonna bring this I don't know if we want to put it in there or not, or bump his other choices up one spot because it does repeat Silman.
No, I'll just do this. Yeah.
If we were ranking that book would have probably come in around number 11 for me on my list.
Right.
It's a book I highly, highly, highly recommend for lower rated players. Really, really good. If you're not yet ready to read my system, I would read that book first, honestly. Sirawan's going to love that. But I would say read the Sirawan book, and then, that'll give you like a first, like you can start playing. And then when you want to really understand chess,
right.
then you can read my system and it'll supersede
that's right
what Sirawan and Silman wrote for you. But I mean, point wise, it's not going to shake up our rankings. If I had known to rank it, it would have been around number 10 or 11 for me.
Okay, let's move on to the final rankings. We'll close this out. Here we go.
So the final rankings, although we do need to find out what Kostya thinks about Fischer, about Kasparov and Alyekhin. I mean, he must have just forgotten Kasparov, right?
Well, they were all on the list. They were all on the list that we put out there.
It's hard to imagine that it didn't even get like a snub or like a number 10 or but okay, maybe he really thought of it and thought like, I'm not even going to mention him. But given that, number 1 is Tal-Botvinnik.
Wow, amazing. Okay, there
by
it is.
1 point over my 60 memorable games.
Wow,
in number 2. And rounding out our top 3 is Zurich 1953. And that's also just 1 point behind 60 memorable games. Those 3 come well ahead of the next group of top books, which are Test of Time, even without a Kostya rating. Test of Time and Botvinnik, and
I'm going to go ahead and say there's no way that Zurich is above Kasparov, but I'm just going to go ahead and say that. Yeah. Okay. And then what was after Kasparov? Botvinnik. So
right now our tally is after that jump from 3rd place down to 4th place, which is a gap. 4th place is Kasparov. 5th place is Botvinnik.
I'm going to try to make that big so you're just going to see that Botvinnik. Yeah. All right.
And then 6th place is my system, again, without any points from Kostya.
That jerk. 6th place is my system.
7th place, Alyekhin, again, without points from Kostya.
Kostya, man. Ruining everything. You just got to be careful with these millennials. They'll really ruin your life.
And finally, 7 Deadly Sins.
Kostya also snubbed that one. Complete snub.
Yeah, didn't mention it either. And after 7 Deadly Sins, Road to Improvement by Yermo.
Oh, Yermo made it, man. Congratulations, Yermo. Dang, I just want to say, that's amazing for Yermo to make it to this list, man. Pretty strong, yeah. And number 10, I guess, Cherishevsky must be 10 then.
No.
Wait a second. Are you sure?
No.
What about Cherishevsky? He was 8, he was 8, 9, and 10. How could that be?
He got edged out by The Art of Attack.
The Art of Attack.
Ranked very highly by Kostya. He single-handedly pulled it above.
Oh, wow.
Other books.
Kostya's really messing with us here. Okay, so that's number 10.
Yeah. The Art of Attack.
Oh, that was really fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Kostya messed it up, but it's still a pretty good list. I'm happy with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty good. Yeah.
Better books at the bottom. No, better books at the top.
Oh, that's a great list, man. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, the cutoff for classics was 2000. So these are all books written by 2000. I don't think we have any books before 1900. So this could just
Right.
be like the 20th century as opposed to classics. We can just say best books of the 20th century.
I considered 300 Schachpartien by Tarash.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good book. I don't think it was as good as these books.
No,
No, yeah.
no, but pretty good.
Yeah, it's
I mean, I think one of like the best, I think the book that had the most impact on me, perhaps that's really old that isn't mentioned here, is Richard Reti, Modern Ideas in Chess, I think it was called. He's
Right.
got some other books that are also, I think, pretty good, like Masters of the Chessboard and
Right,
so
right.
forth. But he was the first person who introduced me to the idea that like basically everybody's building on the people who came before them, and that like if you want to understand, Lasker, you have to look at Steinitz or whatever, and then Lasker to Capablanca. That was like a whole framework for like looking at the development of chess ideas.
Right.
Which I heavily lean on, and it's inspired me to do all kinds of study, So that book was really important to me. And then there's one other book, which I think is in no ways considered a chess classic, but it's Grandmaster Preparation
Yeah, yeah.
by Polgaevsky. Dude, that book, like if I were just ranking like any chess book, not like the famous books, but that book would be number 1 or number 2 for me with Kasparov.
Honestly, I can totally see that. I thought about that, and there were other books that Polagaevsky did too. Art of Defense is a great book by Polagaevsky. Yeah, could have definitely made the
Yeah.
list. Could have definitely.
And he has a second book, like after Grandmaster Preparation, it was Grandmaster Achievement, I think.
Right, and he has that whole Sicilian Labyrinth book.
And the
Another
Sicilian
great book.
Labyrinth. So for me, he's one of the all-time greatest chess writers, like definitely top 3 greatest chess writers, but not famous enough for today's discussion.
I don't know that Grandmaster Preparation book. You could have lobbied. You could have lobbied if you felt that hard. You could have lobbied.
Not a single other person mentioned it, so I wasn't gonna just,
Okay.
lobby.
Okay. All right. Okay. Seth asks, what's the best pre-20th century book? I'm going to go with Tarash's 300 Chess Games. Pretty good book. Yeah.
Agreed.
Good book. Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay, guys, that's super fun. We're going to do, at some point coming up, we're going to do a more recent discussion. And there, Kostya is definitely going to have to help us out. He has read more of the books in the last 20 years than we have, though we're on it. I'm reading. I'm into it. All right, David, really fun, man. Let's do it again soon. Next week, Dojo Talks.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
See you guys next Sunday.